Hello and welcome to another episode of Shatter Dice Plays, the preview of Terminus Frontier. And today I will be showing you how a boss battle works. And as you can see here, we have got the boss arena set up. And as the boss battles take place in a smaller space, or at least this one does, I have been able to squash all the components in a little bit more, so you guys can see a bit more clearly all the different characters and bosses over here. We've got our squad formation board, and as you can see today, I am showcasing the Zealot as our player character. So let's take a quick look at him. We'll set up his health first. So he's got 1 health on his head, he's got 3 on his arms, he's got 2 on his legs, and he has got a whopping 8 health on his chest. And then we can take a look at his mantra card. So we can see here he has redirect, just like all the heroes do, which allows him to redirect damage to a different point of his body. He has brutal attack, which means at the cost of 1 resolve token, we can inflict +1 smashback on our next turn. Or our next attack, should I say. For 2 resolve, we've got Hammer Fist, lets us do a combo. And then for 4 resolve, we've got Howling Rage, his ultimate. So he heals 4 to himself, he gains a shield, and he gets to make a pulse attack with +1 damage. He is armed with this Mauler R35 shotgun, which at a range of 1 to 2 spaces it does +2 damage, but it can only be fired on pulse. And then he also has his Cybernetic Arm, which can do either a strike or a combo, and it always inflicts smashback 2. So the reason we're playing him is because he's a little bit more tanky than the other characters. He will hopefully be able to absorb some of the rather unpleasant damage from this Sump Thresher that we are fighting. Then for our crew members, we are taking the Maverick again, but this time we're taking her in her Gunslinger form, where she has the abilities Dual Barrage, which with 2 actions allows her to fire twice and move once, although she must do this in the order of shoot, move, shoot. And then she has Gunslinger, which for 1 action will allow her to perform a pulse attack with a pistol and perform an additional pulse attack with a pistol. And the Maverick Gunslinger is also armed with 2 pistols, so hopefully she won't run out of ammo as quickly, and she might be able to do a little bit more damage to the Sump Thresher. Then we are taking the Vanguard Iron Legion crew member, and he's armed with his pulse rifle, and he has the combat tactic Rapid Fire, which allows him to fire his pulse rifle twice for 1 action, and Phalanx Advance, where he gains a shield, which is going to be nice for keeping him alive, and then he can move, and then he can shoot. And he has 11 health, which we can't quite see his entire health track there, let's just... so the Vanguard has 11 health, and the Maverick has 7. Now, the boss is over here, so we'll take a quick look at the boss card before we start. So he's got 4 attacks, just like the other enemies, but bosses are a little bit different in that, firstly, their health is dependent on the number of characters in play. So it's 3 characters, so he's got 12 health per character, so he has 36 health. He can move 3 spaces, and he has an armor value of 8, which is crazily high. But there are ways around that. Now, if we attack him from the front, because boss enemies have 4 different facings, and it's basically divided up by drawing lines like this from the corners. And if you're straddling the lines, so for example, if we're in this position here, or here, or here, you would count as being both on his left-hand side and his front. And the reason that's important is because dependent on what side of the boss you're facing, you can target their different body locations. So if we're on the right, we can target his right arm. If we're on the left, we can target his left arm. And if we're at the front, we can target his head. And if we're on the rear, he gets -2 to his armor. Now here's the thing, 8 armor is crazy. It's going to be very, very hard to get through that. Even on the rear with -2 armor, it will be hard to get through 6 points of armor. But we can hit him on his extremities. Now, to hit a body location, this icon here means the attack you're using must be a precision attack. which is basically meaning you either have to have your action card give you this ability, or if you score a direct hit from one of your weapons, that also counts as a precision attack. So these extremities are going to be quite hard to hit, but fortunately, if we don't have a precision attack, then we still perform the attack, but it goes automatically onto his chest, which does unfortunately have that 8 armor. So the plan here is to try and reduce the health of his left, right arms and his head, and then any excess damage to those locations will be placed onto his chest, and that basically seems to be the tactic against bosses in this. And this is the boss's health tracker. So we've got his right arm is this top health bar with 3 points of health, his head is the centre one with 4 points of health, and the lower one here is his left arm. Now you may be able to see there's some coloured tokens here. Now these yellow tokens are reaction tokens. So when the Sump Thresher's health is reduced past one of these yellow tokens, we flip that over and it's going to cause a reaction by him. So he can activate many times in a turn. And then when we get down to 0, we'll flip over one of these red tokens, and that will then give us a bonus in attacking him. And this is his main chest health bar here with 36 health, and at this space of 10, so when he's reduced to 10 health, we will look at this Heat 2 token. And Heat 2, or Heat 3, basically a Heat token, is kind of like the boss powering up in a video game. You know, you go into their second form and the music changes and all that business. So it looks like it's going to be a tough fight. We don't have any extra equipment or experience, so we should be able to do it with what we've got, but we're going to find out. So that's the characters and bosses covered, and we're almost ready to begin. But first, I want to point out some of the new terrain features we have on here. Firstly, you will have noticed these acid pools positioned around the board. So an acid pool is basically special terrain, and moving into it or being pushed into it causes a drift hunter to receive 2 damage to their leg location. If the hunter begins their activation inside the acid pool and ends their activation still in the pool, they will receive another 2 damage. Unfortunately, enemies are immune to this. And then we also have these tokens here, just next to our item tokens. And these are proximity mines. Moving onto a proximity mine causes it to detonate, damaging the unit moving onto it for 1 heavy fire damage card. This ignores cover and armor. So that isn't limited to only the drift hunters. We can hopefully push the Sump Thresher onto that. And the last thing to be aware of is the Sump Thresher activates using this Thresher AI deck, which works very similar to the Hostile Forces deck we've seen before. However, in an ordinary game, the Hostile Forces deck will have a crisis card at the bottom, which basically tends to mean game over. This doesn't have a crisis card at the bottom, so if we run out of Thresher AI cards, we'll shuffle the deck and form a new one. So there's no actual time limit, it's just until he defeats us or we defeat him. And that is pretty much everything. So, we are ready to begin. So the first thing we're going to do is shuffle our Zealots cards and draw our 5 starting cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we move on to the squad formation. So we are putting the Zealot in the flanking position, which increases his threat by 2, giving him 1 resolve token. And it also allows him to immediately move 2 spaces. So he's going to move 1, 2 to there. Then we have the Maverick as our primary gunner, and she has 3 actions and moves her threat up by 2. So I'm going to use these yellow cubes to count the number of actions I've got. And then finally we have the Fire Gunner position being filled by the Vanguard Iron Legion. So he will gain 3 actions, he gains 1 threat, and he gains a boost token. So that's squad formation done. Now we reveal the first Thresher AI card. Right, so if there's 4 players, he would be going into initiative 2. But because there's only 3 of us, he's going into initiative 4. Which means the Zealot's going to get to go first. Now, we know he's going to do his purple attack. So we can have a quick look at what that is. So we know he's going to charge 3 and he's going to do a melee attack. And it will give us a suppression card. And it all goes onto the arms. Okay, so he's going to really target our arms. So we ideally want to be out of his range for that. Well, if I was anybody other than the Zealot, I might not be too bothered about that. And just hang back and shoot him. But the Zealot really needs to get up close for his strongest attacks. So what we're going to do is we're going to play this Brutal Execution. So it's going to cost us both of our action cubes. But it allows us to move and then make a combo attack with +3. We don't need to worry about this because it's not going to do us any good. It also increases our threat by 2. 1, 2. Which will get us another resolve token. Okay, so our movement is 3. So we're going to move 1, 2 to here to be at the side of him. So with Brutal Execution, we've moved adjacent to him, and now we're going to do a combo with +3 damage. Now, this cybernetic arm always does smashback 2. We don't need to do damage for smashback to take effect, so we should still be able to move him 2 spaces, even if we don't manage to hurt him. And what I'm also going to do is spend 1 of my resolve tokens to turn this into a brutal attack, which gives it +1 smashback. So it will have smashback 3, which means we will get to move him 3 spaces. Okay, so we draw 2 cards because this is a combo, and we get a direct hit, so we couldn't have asked for anything better than that. And 2, so that's 4 damage and smashback 3. So his right arm, he actually rips it off straight away. But it's going to trigger this yellow token here. So I don't believe the cube stops when it goes onto a reaction. It doesn't seem to say so in the rulebook. So we're actually going to reduce that to 0. But before we go any further with it, okay, it uses its purple attack as a reaction. So this tells us it charges 3 and it does this attack. But it's not going to need to charge. So it will turn to face him. And then we draw a heavy fire card with +1 damage, and it's going to give us a suppression card. And this damage all goes on to his arm. So we draw a heavy fire card. It does 1 point of damage. And it says the damage all goes onto his arm. It gets +1 damage, so it's going to be 2 damage to his arms, which reduces his arm health to 1. And then he also gains a suppression card. We've used Brutal Execution, so we don't have to throw a card away, we just add a suppression card to our hand. Okay, and then we do the rest of the damage, so we've reduced that to 0. And we get to reveal this for a bonus. So it's got -2 armor, so it now only has 6 armor. And if we shoot it from behind, it's only going to have 4 armor. So I'm going to leave that face up as a reminder. And then we get to do smashback 3 on it. So we're going to move it 1, 2, 3 spaces, which puts it onto that proximity mine. Now, as I said earlier, a proximity mine, when something detonates it, we draw a heavy fire card, and this ignores armor and defense, and will go straight on to the Sump Thresher's chest. Which, again, we couldn't have asked for a better card there. That's 3 damage directly onto its chest. So it goes from 26 down to 23. Now, I almost forgot, actually. He had 3 health on his arm, and we did 4 damage to him. So the excess 1 point of damage actually gets carried over onto the chest. So that reduces him to 32 health. So not a bad first turn by our Zealot. Now the Sump Thresher is going to get to take its turn. So as we saw previously, it's going to use its purple attack, which it's just done. So it's going to try and do it again. And it's going to charge 3 and do the same thing again. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3. Now before it makes its attack, the Zealot is going to play Fearsome Roar as a reaction. So he gains a shield, and then he gains up to 4 threat, and then redetermines the current enemy's target. So he's going to use this on himself to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and get all the way up to 8 on the threat track. So now he gains 3 resolve, and he gains 1 shield token, and he gains 1 shield token. And then the Sump Thresher will attack him again with a heavy fire. Okay, this is 3 damage to his arm, plus the extra 1 damage. And it reduces his threat by 3. So this is really brutal, because it does 1 damage to his arm, and then the other 3 damage goes onto his chest. He also gains another suppression card, and because it's reduced his arm to 0 health, we need to draw a minor trauma card for him. So we've got Blood Loss, Persistent Trauma. When gained, add this to your skill deck as the top card. So this goes on top of our skill deck, and when we draw it, which we of course will do next, we lose 2 health from any location of our choice, and we can get rid of it by spending an action and tying a tourniquet. So we did him some serious damage, but he has bounced right back and done us some serious mischief. Now we're going to use our Maverick Gunslinger. Okay, so we want to take out this left arm now. So she's got 3 actions. Okay, we're going to aim with one of her pistols with the first action. Now, when we do the aim action, it allows us to look at the top 2 cards of one of these 2 decks. As we can see here, the standard action is perform aim 2. So I may have done that wrong if I aimed in the last game, because I forgot it was 2. So we're going to look at this deck, and we've got 2 damage and 3 damage. So they're both really good, but we need that direct hit. So we're going to place those at the top of this deck, so we know we're getting a good attack off that deck. With our other 2 actions, we're going to use Dual Barrage. Place a token on there to let me know I've used it. And now I get to fire one of my weapons on Pulse or Burst, move, and then perform another Pulse or Burst attack. So we're going to fire this deck on Burst. She gets a direct hit. So she does 3 damage to the left arm. Oh, we do have to increase her threat by 1 as well. So we drop the health down again, but we have to reveal this token. Okay, it's its blue attack this time. So it's going to attack the Zealot. And we can see here it would charge 4, but it's already targeting the Zealot. So it's going to be a heavy fire with plus 2 damage. And this would hit everybody adjacent to it. But fortunately, there's only the Zealot adjacent to it, so we don't have to worry about that. And it is going to be Smashback 2. So we draw a heavy fire card. Oh my god. And this is going to be 5 damage to his head. Wow, it's had some very powerful attacks there. But he has got that defense token, so that's going to drop it to 4 damage to his head. So he takes 1 on the head, and then the other 3 goes through to his chest. So we draw another one, and it's a flesh wound, which is for the arm or the leg. So we ignore that. It's also a flesh wound. Shell Shock. Okay, so persistent trauma. When gained, add this to your skill deck. Okay, so it goes on our skill deck again. When played from hand, lose 1 action this turn. I need to spend 2 actions to get rid of it. So the Zealot's not doing too well. But we have reduced the left arm down to 0 health. And the bonus we get for this is another -2 to its armor. So it's only got 4 armor now. So what we're going to do is now we can use the movement portion of this. And we want to get as close behind it as we can. So we're going to ignore the cover for now. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 to here. Because at range 1 to 2, her pistol gets +1 damage. And because we're shooting it in the back, it gets -2 from its armor. And it's already got 2 of those -2 tokens on it. So it's only going to have 2 armor when we shoot it in the back. And we did that aim on this pistol. So this is the pistol we're going to fire with on burst. And then, thankfully, that is the card that gets discarded. So it does 5 damage, plus the 1, so that's 6 damage, -2 for its armor. So it goes from 32 health down to 28. And that's the Maverick's turn done. So the fire gunner needs to help out the Zealot here. But I'm not really sure what he can do, if I'm honest. So he's got 3 actions. So first, he is going to use Phalanx Advance to gain a shield. Then he gets to move, and he has a movement value of 3. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3. So he can also shoot it in the back. So he's going to do a burst attack. So we draw 2. 1, 2, which is 3 damage, and then we discard the last one, which is the inaccurate card. So its armor blocks 2, so it takes 1 point of damage. And then we are going to use rapid fire for another action point, and each of these actions will put us up 1 on the threat track each, so he's at 3 now. And then we get to do a pulse or a burst, and then a pulse or a burst. So we're going to do another burst because we want to maximise damage. So we get 1, 2, 3, and then we discard. That's unfortunate. I should have done pulse. Okay, so that's another 1 point of damage. And then lastly, we may as well just do a pulse. And that's 3 points of damage. 1, 2, 3. And unfortunately, his rifle is now out of ammo. And that's the end of that turn. So we need to draw cards for the Zealot, but he's already got 5 cards in his hand. So thankfully, these 2 suppressions, as annoying as they are, they've stopped us from having to draw more cards. So we're not going to suffer those minor traumas just yet. And then we start positioning ourselves on the squad formation board. So this time, we're going to have the Zealot take the rear guard, because that means he can immediately heal 2 and reload. So I get to pick the body locations that get healed, but we're just going to pick the chest. And then we are going to reload. What did we fire with? It was his cybernetic arm, wasn't it? Yeah, we're going to reload his cybernetic arm, or rest his cybernetic arm, so we can get that direct hit back. Then the Vanguard is once again going to be the fire gunner, because he gets to flip this token, and it becomes +3 damage. Well, the Zealot moves down 3 on the threat track, and the Vanguard moves up 1. And then the Maverick moves up 2 on the threat track and gains 3 actions as she's the primary gunner. And we get to refresh one of these cards for each of them. So we're going to refresh the rapid fire and the dual barrage. Okay, and then we draw our Thresher's AI card. Okay, so there's only 3 of us, so it's going to go at 8, but it does get 2 shield tokens. Which I believe the way these work is when this goes up to a value of 2, it blocks 2 damage. It doesn't become 2 separate tokens. So that's going to make him hard to hit with our first attack. But he goes at initiative 8. Which is good, because our Maverick and Vanguard get to go first. So what we're going to do is we'll use Dual Barrage again for 2 actions. She's going to do a burst with this pistol. We'll miss. We get 2 damage, and we get a 3 damage. Okay, so unfortunately that one doesn't do anything. It does 3 damage. And this token blocks 2 points of damage, so it only takes 1 damage, dropping it to 22 health. Okay, now she gets to move. So what she's going to do is she's going to move 1, and she's going to get to cover. So she's going to get to there. But because she stepped on this box, she gets to draw a yellow gear card. So we take our yellow gear, give it a shuffle, and we draw some exo-frame boots. So she can use those. Okay, and she finishes her move here. And then she's going to fire her other pistol on burst. 1, 2, 3. And then that one gets discarded. So luckily we got the direct hit, so it ignores cover and armor. Which means that is 3 damage directly onto its back. 1, 2, 3, which drops it to 19 health. And because it's dropped below 20, it goes onto its heat 2, which means it performs this reaction. Now what it also means, just before we do that, is we take its AI cards and we remove any cards that are heat 1. So this card is removed. And then I believe we take the discards, remove the heat 1s from there. And then we would shuffle them, but this Death Leap is its current activation, so this stays in play. And then we can take a look at its ability, Burrow. Shuffle scenario events A, B, and C, randomly draw 1 and resolve it immediately. So we take events A, B, and C, and then we draw 1. So I'm just going to draw from the bottom. Okay, B. What that event did was it caused it to heal 2 health, so it goes from 19 up to 21. Then it would discard any negative conditions, but it doesn't have any on it. And then it moves to the closest acid pool to the hero with the lowest threat, which was unfortunately our Zealot. And then it immediately performs its red attack, which is a heavy fire with smashback 2. So it does 3 damage to his legs. So he takes 1, 2 to his legs. Sorry, it does 4 damage to his legs. And it drops him to 2 health on his chest. So we have to draw another minor trauma. And this one is leg fracture. So this goes on the top of our deck again. When played from hand, -2. Wow, it's really, really smashed up the Zealot. He really isn't doing well. She's got 1 action left, hasn't she? Because she had 3 actions. So with her last action, she's going to reload one of her pistols. So just this one. Okay, now we're on to the Vanguard's turn. So the Vanguard's going to use his first action to reload his pulse rifle. and then he's going to use one action to aim. So we get to look at the top 2 cards. Okay, so he's got one action left, and we know there's a direct hit in there. So what we're going to do is place the direct hit on the top of the deck, and then replace recoil on the bottom. Now from where he is, he can't fire at the head, unfortunately. That would have been nice. But we can fire at the left side of it. So we have to target the chest. So we're going to use our last action to fire on full auto and add our +3 token. Which means this is going to ignore its armor completely. That's a shame. Then we only get a 1, and then our third card gets us a 3, which is nice. And then we have to discard 2. So we discard the inaccurate and we discard 2 damage. Okay, so that's not too bad at all, because it gives us a total of 9 damage, and it's going to ignore its armor. So onto its chest we straight away go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So he's just dropped it to 12 health with that attack. It has cost him almost all of his ammo, but it was worth it for that attack. Okay, and then it is the Sump Thresher's turn. So it's going to use its blue ability. So it's going to charge 4 towards the Maverick. Now, as we saw last time, it's going to do a pretty powerful attack, and it will hit everybody adjacent. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it can still attack her, but she's going to be in cover. So it deals a heavy fire damage. So it deals 3 damage plus 2, so that's going to deal 5 damage to her. Although it's not too bad. So it's going to deal 5 damage, but she is in cover. So it's going to half it rounding down. So she's going to take 2 damage, dropping her to 5 health. But it's also smashback 2. So it would attempt to move her this way, 2 spaces. But because the Vanguard's here, she's going to smash into the Vanguard, which means both she and the Vanguard take 2 damage each. So it drops her to 3 health, and it drops the Vanguard down to 9. So we now go on to our Zealot, who is in a lot of trouble. So he's only got 2 actions. I think he's probably going to get knocked out, to be honest. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep him on his feet. But what he can do is we'll use Advance. So it puts him at 1 on the threat track. And then he is going to move 2. 1, 2. So he's now behind it. So it's only going to have 2 armor for this attack. And then we can do a pulse and a burst, or a strike and a combo. I think we're going to use our shotgun, because it does the +2 damage. But we get shred cover. It's in cover from the Maverick, but I think that means it has to be in cover from him. So it's not actually in cover. So unfortunately it's only 1 damage. But we add 2 for the shotgun. So it becomes 3 damage, and it has 2 armor at the back. So it's going to take 1 damage, dropping it to 11 health. Then we're going to play Shock Burst. So we fire on Pulse again, this time with +1 damage, and it's going to do Smashback 1. We're only going to target the Sump Thresher. This means we could target in a way that would hit other models, but there's nobody else we want to hit. So we do a Pulse attack, which gets us 3, plus the 1 is 4, and it's his shotgun, so it's 5, 6, and it's Smashback 1. So it's got 2 armor, so it's going to reduce it to 4. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, leaving it on 7 health. But then the smashback will take effect and try and push it into here. But because of the cover cube, it can't move there. So it takes 1 extra damage, dropping it to 6 health. So we've used both of our actions, but we have 1 more trick up our sleeve. we've got 4 resolve left. So we're going to use all 4 of our resolve to activate his ultimate ability, Howling Rage. So the first thing we do is we heal 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Putting him on 6 health on his chest. He gains a shield, and he gets to fire another pulse attack with +1 damage. And it's another 3. So it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, which is going to do 4 damage to it because of its 2 points of armor, dropping it right down to 2 health. So not enough to kill it, but it's very nearly dead. But now, as it's the end of the turn, unfortunately we only have 3 cards in the Zealot's hand, so he has to draw both his leg fracture and his shell shock. So it'll drastically reduce his movement, and he's going to lose an action in the next turn. And now that's the end of the turn. So this turn we're going to have the Maverick take point. So she moves up 3 on the threat track. Then the Vanguard is going to take the flanking position and move up 2 on the threat track. And finally, the Zealot will take the primary gunner role and move up 2 on the threat track. Okay, so we draw an AI card for the Thresher. It's going to go at initiative 2, so it's going to go really early, which isn't ideal for us. But if we're lucky, our trusty Maverick is going to be able to take it out before it can activate. Oh, and we get to reactivate 2 of these cards. So I think what we're going to do is use our dual barrage for 2 action points, which puts her up on the threat track by 1. Then she gets to make an attack. So she's got this freshly loaded pistol. She's right next to it, so she's going to get +1 damage from the pistol's ability. So she's going to fire on burst. 5. And then an inaccurate. So plus the 1 is 6. It's got 4 armor. It's going to take 2 damage. That is exactly the amount we needed to finish it off. So that defeats the Sump Thresher. And that is the end of that scenario. Once again, I'm not going to read out any of the story or anything to avoid spoilers. So that's a boss battle, and that's the basics of how a boss battle works in this game. Really cool, actually. This is the first time I've played through a boss battle, and I really like the way the health track works. These reactions are really cool. These kind of things really keep you on your toes with knowing it's going to do something when you damage its kind of vital spots, but also getting these bonuses for destroying them is good. And I really like the use of the facings, the different angles of attacking it from, like trying to get behind it to reduce its armor. You know, that makes a huge difference, because otherwise this boss battle would be almost impossible, you know, with 8 armor. So I really liked that. It went pretty much as I planned, with the idea of the Zealot, you know, tanking a lot of the damage and dishing out some punishment, while these two get to its more vulnerable spots. The only thing I didn't realise is that the Zealot, he wasn't quite as tanky as I thought he was. He took a heck of a beating there, but he was the only character who could have done that. So the Zealot is good for taking damage, but he just took so much in that first turn, I couldn't get any of his other cards that would have helped him out. So that is it. Yeah, I haven't really got much more to say about that. Again, I just really love the combat system, the way everything works. You know, fighting that was a real challenge. So I hope you enjoyed seeing how boss battles work, and I hope you're enjoying these playthroughs. Once again, you can still late back this game on Kickstarter, as far as I'm aware. I'm really enjoying it. I really like this gameplay. I'm really excited to see how the whole kind of story comes together. I think that's going to be, you know, if the story for this game is done right, and it's fun and it's interesting, and you've got all that space travel, there's going to be the cherry on top. You know, I think there's so many things in this. You know, cover, squad formation, different health locations, all these things are great, and none of them feel too complicated. They all feel like a lot of things that have been done in a very simple way and put together to make a relatively complex game. You know, it's not a light game by any means, but each component that makes up this kind of complex melting pot of rules is simple enough that you can kind of learn them quite easily one at a time. So I'm not going to say I didn't make any mistakes there. I probably did. If the developers are watching this and just completely face palming, then feel free to leave me a comment telling me what I did wrong. So that's going to be it for this. We're going to do a stealth mission next. And I hope you all enjoyed this, so please do like, share, subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.